So good morning. Today's daf is Yevamot daf Kaf Dalid. We are at the two dots, 4 lines up on the bottom of Kaf Gimel on Mebet. But we need to know where we are. We're about to cite some language from the Mishnah, but let's go over what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah had two different cases. The most recent Mishnah that we learned yesterday at the top of the daf. The Mishnah had one case where a man married one of two sisters and then became confused and wasn't sure which of the sisters he had married. And so we needed to give a divorce to both of them. And then we dealt with a situation where if he died before he gave that divorce, what was the status? But then we had a second situation where there were two people, not related, not brothers, but two men who married two sisters. So Gershon and Reuven and Gershon married Rachel and Leah, and respectively. Now Rachel and Leah are sisters, and so the question is, and now again there was confusion as to which one married Rachel and which one married Leah, and so as a result, what did we say? We said, just as in the case with a single individual, both Reuven and Gershon need to give both Rachel and Leah a get. They need to give two gittin. They have to give two, one to each woman, because they need to get because each one might actually be their wife, and they're not sure which one, and so they need to end up giving two. Excuse me, please. So as a result, that was the first rule. And then what happens if they both die without children and they each leave one brother? Well, then again, their respective brothers are basically in the exact same situation. There's nothing that they can do. They need to do chalitza with both women. However, if Gershon has two brothers, then Reuven's brother can perform chalitza with both sisters, and Reuven has one brother, so Reuven's brother can perform chalitza with both sisters, and then one of Gershon's brothers can perform chalitza with one of the sisters, and the other brother can perform yibum on the other sister. So again, because what will happen is Reuven will be closed off, and definitely there will not be any relationship, and one of Gershon's brothers will take care of chalitza with one sister. So as a result, that sister will be able to be free to marry whomever she wants. And then the other, and of course, the other brother can't marry, except for that she can't marry either Reuven's brother or any of Gershon's brothers, because she might be the sister of she might be the former wife of a brother, and the former wife of a brother, other than through yibum, cannot be married. So the brothers can't marry her. So again, the only exception to when you're allowed to marry your brother's wife is when it's in the context of yibum. So once the chalitza has been done to the woman by one of the brothers, the other brother cannot. None of the other brothers can marry her, and so as a result, Gershon's two brothers, one will do chalitza with one of them, and now that the chalitza was done with that one, either this woman that's left is either the actual wife of Gershon, in which case yibum can be done with her because that's the halacha, or it will turn out that it is actually Reuven's wife that's left over, and of course Reuven's wife has no problem marrying one of Gershon's brothers. So either way, Levi will be able to marry the remaining sister. So that's how we dealt with the situation when there's two brothers and one brother. And if both had two brothers, then one of Gershon's brothers can perform chalitza with one sister, and while one of Reuven's brothers can perform chalitza on the other sister, and then Gershon's other brother can perform yibum on the sister with whom Reuven's brother performed chalitza, while Reuven's other brother can perform yibum on the sister on whom Gershon's brother performed chalitza. And so as a result, everything will be wonderful, and both women will be able to get married. So our Gemara is going to begin by noting that this last rule is obvious based on the rules in the first case involving one one husband, involving one brother, meaning one, I should say one husband there, meaning that if Reuven is the only one, he marries one of Rachel or Leah, and we're not sure which, and now Reuven dies without any children, and so now we're not sure whom chalitza needs to be performed with. If there are two brothers, one of the brothers can do chalitza to one, and then the other brother can marry the other sister. So, and that'll be fine, because it doesn't, as even if they get it wrong, even if the woman who had chalitza done to her turns out to not be the sister, it's okay, because not be the wife of Reuven. That's okay, because the chalitza just won't mean anything, and then Yibum will be done correctly. And if it's in fact it is the wife of Reuven to whom chalitza was performed, well, then it's great, because now chalitza has been performed, and so as a result, the sister is able to marry the other brother. So that is exactly the situation. So why do we need this teaching at all? And that's what we're going to begin with. So the Gemara says, L'zeh where when we have both Reuven and Gershon marry Rachel and Leah, and they each have two brothers. Tu lamali. Why do I need this additional clause? Hainu hach. It's the same case as the first case, where there's only one husband and two brothers. What's the difference? There's no real difference. So ma'odetema ligzer. I might have thought we should make a gzeira dilma miyabim below chalitza, that maybe we should. That maybe somebody will come to do yibum without having done chalitza, and therefore we should prohibit any kind of yibum. Kamash malan, not so. Now Rashi has to help us here, because why would I think in this case that there will be somebody will perform yibum without chalitza more than in the case where there was only Reuven around? Meaning, if when there's just Reuven, one brother can do chalitza and the other brother can do yibum, so shouldn't it mean that when there's Reuven and Gershon, and each of them have two brothers, each of the one brother can one brother of Reuven can do chalitza with one of the sisters, and one brother of Gershon can do chalitza with the other of the sisters, and both the other brothers can marry the other sisters. So then everything works out. It's the exact same case. Like, what's the difference? And the answer is that Rashi explains that we're worried that in this case, both sisters end up getting married. And so since both sisters end up getting married and there isn't one sister, so to speak, left out in the cold, well, as a result, people will say, hey, the end result is one sister being married. Why bother with this chalitza step? Unlike the case when there's only one brother, when there's only one husband at the beginning of our story. If there's only one husband at the beginning of our story, and that's Reuven, who we're not sure married Rachel or Leah, well, then the situation is different, because there will always be one woman who's left out in the cold. And so as a result, knowing that there's one woman who's left out in the cold will tell us that we need to have a chalitza. And so that's why in the one husband situation at the beginning, where there's only one husband for Rachel or Leah who are sisters, so then we certainly wouldn't think to have a gzeira, that we wouldn't have to be worried. But when there are two husbands at the beginning of the story, and we end up with no women left out in the cold, again, maybe they will worry that somebody will try to do yibum without chalitza. So kamash malan, that's why the Mishnah needed to tell us the case of two husbands in the start. Okay, so Mishnah mihadetanan. Now, in our Mishnah, we say that that if the two brothers that in the case of one husband to start with, that well, actually, as is with the two husbands to start with, that it's possible that both the sisters are going to end up being married at the end of our story. But what about in the Mishnah that we're going to learn sometime this coming week? where it says Arba Achim, where there are four brothers. This is the famous case that really will get your head spinning. Shnayim mehen nesuin shtei achayos, right? So you have four brothers: Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. Reuven and Shimon are married to Rachel and Leah. So umesu nesuin es achayos. And now those two brothers, Reuven and Shimon, die. Harei elu cholzos v'lo misyavmos. The answer is that Yehuda and Levi are stuck. They are not able to do chalitza. Okay, so why in that situation are they not allowed to do chalitza? They're not allowed to do. They have to do chalitza. They're not allowed to do yibum. So why? So why in this situation do we enable there? Why is there a possibility, a path towards yibum in the situation where there are two separate men who are married to two sisters, and each of them have two brothers? How could we end up where where yibum is possible? Shouldn't the situation be exactly the same? Well, Hachi Hashta, 1 second. The cases really aren't comparable. So, and now we turn to Kafdalat Amud Aleph. Hasam, in the case where there's four brothers, Ilaman de Amar Yesh Zika, if you want to say that there is again, remember, Zika is the relationship, the legal relationship that exists between the Yevamah, the woman, the widow of the brother who dies without children, and the Yavam, the brothers who are potentially going to marry her through Yibum. So if we say that there's Yesh Zika, that there's a legal ramification to this relationship, well, then there's a problem, because once you're married to one sister, you're not allowed to marry the other sister. And so as a result, that's going to be problematic. And so that's why if we say Yesh Zika, so then it's a completely different case. The Ilaman de Amar Asul Levatel Mitzvahs Yavamin. And if you say that there's Ein Zika, in which case, what was the problem with the case of the four brothers? We explained a couple of days ago, maybe it's even a week or so ago, we explained that the problem is that where we have a gzeira, that maybe you will end up negating the mitzvah of Yibum. And how would that happen? That would happen in the following way. If we say that four brothers, again, Reuven and Shimon, are married to Rachel and Leah, and now Levi and Yehuda want to do Yibum with Rachel and Leah, so now, and we say, hey, let Levi do Yibum with Leah, and we'll have Yehuda do Yibum with Rachel, and everything will work out great. And the problem is that if, in fact, between those two marriages, Yehuda drops dead after Levi has already married Rachel, Levi has already married Leah, well, then the problem is that now Rachel has no one to marry, and Levi can't do Yibum with her. There's an erva relationship, because it's his sister-in-law now. And so as a result, since now the widow of since now Rachel, Reuven's widow, now will not be able to perform Yibum with anyone, well, that's going to be a problem. We don't want that to happen. And so that's why, and because we say, also levatel mitzvahs Yevamot, you're not allowed to negate the mitzvah of Yibum. So, but Hacha, here in the case where each sister is married to an unrelated man, so only one of each of the sisters falls to the surviving brothers, well, then there's not going to be a problem. Kol chad v'chad emor didei kamisramya lay. We can say that each one, is in fact marrying the one who's zakuk for him. So, so that everything should be totally fine. So, so it is a completely different situation. And so as a result, that question from the Mishnah that we'll learn in a couple of days is really not any question, because their cases are not comparable. Okay, so now our Mishnah concluded with Kadmu v'kanzu ein motzino, that if in fact the brothers do not, if the brothers went ahead and married the sisters, meaning if the two brothers of Gershon had simply gone ahead and done Yibum with both Rachel and Leah after Reuven's brothers had done chalitza with Rachel and Leah, then they're not forced to divorce them. So, and the Gemara adds that this is true even if Gershon and his brothers are Kohanim. So let's take a look. Tani Sheila taught, so again, Kanmu v'Kansu and Matzian, that if the brothers of one of Gershon, we're going to say in our example, get up and they go and do Yibum with Rachel and Leah after Reuven's brothers have done chalitza to her, we say that they do not need to, we don't force them to divorce them. So Tani Sheila taught in the following brisa, Afilu Shneim Kohanim. This is true even if they're Kohanim. So my timer, what's the reason? So what's the problem? So let's back up and just remember, a Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee. Now the Torah never says whether a woman who's had chalitza is treated as a divorcee, but we do treat such a woman as a divorcee, and so as a result, a Kohen is not allowed to marry somebody to whom chalitza was performed. So, but in this case, we have an uncertainty because each of the brothers, we know that one of the brothers married a divorcee, married a chalutza, but we don't know which of the brothers married a chalutza. And so as a result, we say that even if both brothers are Kohanim, they don't need to divorce either Rachel or Leah. Why? My time of chalutza de rabbanan, because chalutza is only a rabbinical decree. Usafek chalutza lo gazer behu rabbanan. And when it came to a possible chalutza, we say that the rabbis did not make a decree that she must be divorced. And so as a result, basically the concept of safek de rabbanan lahakel applies, that because we are uncertain which of the brothers is married to the chalutza, because we don't know whether the actual chalutza is Rachel or Leah, because we don't know which of them was actually married to Reuven. So when Gershon's brothers now do Yibum with both of Rachel and Leah, we don't know which of them is actually marrying a chalutza, and so as a result, there's only a suffix that each one would need to get divorced, and so as a result, because of the concept of safek d'Rabbanan lahakel, we will not force them. Now the Gemara asks a very important question. That all was based on the concept that chalutza, that doing chalutzin was a rabbinic decree. The chalutza d'Rabbanan is chalutza actually a rabbinic decree? But Tanya, we learned it in a brisa. Gerusha, when it says in the pasuk that a gerusha is not isha, the pasuk says isha zonah v'chalala lo yikachu, right? So a Kohen's not allowed to marry a zonah or a halal. These are women who somebody who has engaged in a variety of different relationships that cause them to be labeled either a zonah or a halal. The isha grusham isha lo yikachu, and also he can't marry a divorcee, ki kadosh hu lelokav, because he is holy. So to God. So gerusha, the concept of gerusha that it says in that pasuk tells you that it's a divorcee is covered. Chalutza minayin. How do I know chalutza? Talmud Lomer v'isha. It says and a woman, and so and a woman tells us that meisha tells us that, or v'isha gerusha tells us that not only is there a divorcee who's prohibited, but somebody else who's prohibited, and namely it's a chalutza. So doesn't that show, this is from the pasuk, doesn't that show that this is a biblical requirement that the Kohen is not allowed to marry a chalutza? And the answer is no, it does not. Midirabanan, who actually this is all rabbinic, ukra asmachta ba'almahu, and this pasuk is not actually a proof text, but just a support that the rabbis use to indicate that in fact it makes sense for them to apply this rule. So in fact, a chalutza is only a rabbinic decree, and so as a result, that a Kohen is allowed to marry a suffix chalutza. Not a very likely situation to happen today, but in any event, it highlights the nature of chalutza, and that in fact is how we paskin that a chalutza is only rabbinic. The prohibition of a Kohen marrying a chalutza is only rabbinic. Okay, so now that brings us to the next Mishnah, and the next Mishnah, very short Mishnah, mitzvah begadol liyabim ve'im kadam akatan zacha. That the primary mitzvah of Yibum is on the oldest brother. However, if a younger brother jumps up and goes in front of him, then that marriage is still a good marriage, and it's totally fine. So, Tana Rabbanan. So now we're going to try and prove this rule. How do we know that in fact the oldest brother is the one that's supposed to do it? So we say Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught in a brisa of Haya B'chor, right? That this pasuk. Let's just read the pasuk. V'Haya B'chor asher teleid, and the firstborn that will be born, Yakum al Shem Achiv, will be established through via the name of his brother. Achiv Hames, V'lo yimacheh shmo miYisrael, and now his name will not be erased from Israel. So the clear implication of the literal understanding of this verse is the idea that the child that will be born as a result of the Yibum relationship will effectively take the place for the brother who passed away without children. That's the intention. But now we are going to read this pasuk in a non-literal fashion that will say, and then we'll be trying to explain why we're reading it in a non-literal fashion. V'haya b'chor, so it's going to be the firstborn. So mikan shemitzvah shebegadol liyabim, that this language of haya b'chor, it can be read as the b'chor will be the one who does the thing in the prior pasuk. This is from Dvarim Parakaf Hey pasuk Vav. In Dvarim Parakaf Hey pasuk Hey, it says, Ki yeshvu achim yachdav umeis achad mehem v'chein ein ubein ein lo siyeh eishes hameis hachutza leish zar Yevamot yavo aleha ukacha lo leisha v'yibma. Right, so if brothers are dwelling together and one of them dies and he doesn't have any children, so then he doesn't go to the widow does not marry a stranger, but rather the brother, a yibam, a brother will take and marry the widow. And now v'hayaha b'chor, and who is that brother? It's the b'chor. That's how we are effectively reading it. So that's the beginning. And now the pasuk continues. Asher teleid prat la'ilonis she'ein yoledis. So this comes to tell us that in Ilonis, if the widow has no ability to have children, so then there's no obligation to perform yibum. Ayakum al Shem Achiv. So, and now this new brother is supposed to, succeed the name of the deceased brother, L'nachala. So now we're reading this as applying to the person who performs the yibum rather than the child that's produced. So what does it mean that he's going to succeed to the name of his brother? He's going to succeed to his nachala. So ata omer not l'nachala o eno l'shem. How do you know that shame here, that when we refer to a name, that it refers to the inheritance and not the name itself? So maybe Yosef Korono, so Yosef. Maybe if the deceased brother's name was Yosef, we should call the new son Yosef. Yochanan Korono, so Yochanan. Or we should call if the Yochanan was the name of the deceased, we should call him Yochanan. So Ne'amar Kan Yakum al Shem Achiv. The point is that it says that he will succeed to the name of his brother. But if it was referring to the child, the Ne'amar lahalan al Shem Achehem Yikaru Benachlasan. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm wrong drasha at the moment. So Ne'amar Kan Yakum al Shem Achiv. So the Gemara explains that it says here that it's going to be the name, succeed to the name of his brother. V'ne'amar lahalan al Shem Achehem Yikaru Benachlasan. Elsewhere, when it says in Bereshis that they're going to be identified in regard to their inheritance. Mashem ha'amar lahala nachala. So just as in Bereshis, where it's talking, it's dealing with This is dealing with the blessing that Yosef's sons were given. And it says that the name of their brothers, that if there's a new brother, if Yosef has a new son, if Yosef has a new son, then those new sons will be part of Ephraim and Manasseh. So they'll, so Ma Shem Ha'omer Lahalan Lo Nachala. So as a result, just as there we were talking about inheritance, Af Shem Ha'omer Kan Lo Nachala. So too here, we're dealing with inheritance. And so as a result, that shows that Shem here means inheritance. And then finally, the end of that pasuk that we just quoted is is Lo Yimachei Shmo MiYisrael. So what does that come to say? Prat l'saris shishmo machoy. So if in fact the brother who passed away was a saris, somebody who is unable to have children, so then if that deceased brother is a saris, so then he already wasn't going to have children. So as a result, there is no requirement to perform yibum. So Amar Rava, that even though in the rest of the Torah we say that a verse should not leave its plain meaning, so how is it possible that we are giving this verse an interpretation that seems to be very far from its actual plain meaning? Hacha asai gzeirashava apikte mipshate legamri. So here we have a gzeirashava that has come and removed the plain meaning completely. Meaning, again, a simple reading of this pasuk seems that it refers to the firstborn of the Yavam and the Yevamot. But now this Gzeirah that teaches that we're talking about inheritance shows that we're not talking about the son of the son, but rather about something else. The Ilav Gzeirah Haba Amina Shem Mamish. And if not for the Gzeirah I would have thought that the name meant literal name. So again, and the Gzeirah is the shame that it says in this pasuk to the shame that it references with respect to the children of Yosef back in Bereshis, when Yaakov says that any new brother will be part of the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. So Luman Kamizoher Rachmana. So now the question is, who would the name? All right. So now the Gemara is asking the following. You seem to be just saying that if without this Gzeirah I would have thought that the name means literally the name. But Laman Kamazahir Rahmana, who is the Torah telling to give a name? Liyavam, to the Yavam. So the brother, meaning, right? Yakum al Shem Achicha Miboy Ilay. It should have said that you should, again, the pasuk says Yakum al Shem Achiv, which is referring to the brother in third party, but it should say that Achicha, you the Yavam, should name your brother after your deceased brother. So again, Reuven marries Leah. Reuven dies without children. Levi marries now Leah. Levi and Leah have a child, so Levi should be instructed to name the child after Reuven. But in fact, the pasuk says that it puts it in third party, not in second party. So Ilabe, Ilabeidima, Labeidina, and if we're talking about the Beis Din, Yakum al Shem Achi Aviv Miboile, it should have said that the child should succeed to the name of his father's brother, because the actual father is the Yavam, and the one that we're naming after is the father's brother. So it's given the fact that this is unclear as to how the reference to Achiv is structured in the Torah. It seems like the only possible explanation is that Shem does not mean a literal name, but rather an inheritance. So why do I need the Gzeirah at all? The Dilma Hachi Kamar Lahu Rahman al Beis Din. No, maybe in fact it is a commandment to Beis Din that the name of the child should be named after the deceased brother. So Amru Leilu Yavam, that they should say to the Yavam that this is what they should say: Yakum al Shem Achiv. Tell the Yavam that he's supposed to succeed to the name of his brother, meaning that in order to do that, it means that the father should name the new son after his brother. And now the Gzera Shava has come and told us that we're not going to apply that literal understanding. So again, what was the Gemara doing here? The Gemara has done the following. First, we have the pasuk that seems to, on its literal face, say that one should name the child that comes as a result of Levi doing Yibum to Leah in memory of Ruvain. That first child should also be named Ruvain. However, we have a Gzera Shava between this pasuk and the pasuk in Sefer Bereshis that talks about Yosef's sons, and where Shem refers to an inheritance. And so as a result, we say that instead this is telling us about inheritance, and that the whole pasuk therefore needs to be read differently. And instead of reading Yakum HaBachor, the Hayah HaBachor, as telling us that the eldest child should be named for Reuven, it is telling us that the eldest of Reuven's brothers is the one who's responsible for the doing Yibum in the first instance. So now that, okay, so you got that. That's the key point. So again, Yibum should be done by the oldest brother, and we learn it from this pasuk. Now the question is once we have the words V'hayah HaBachor telling us that it's the oldest brother, why aren't we interpreting V'hayah HaBachor literally as saying that it refers to Bachor, meaning the oldest, not whoever's left? It's not just the elder brother, but specifically the firstborn. So now we continue in the Gemara. Once we're saying that it's talking about the eldest, meaning that it's the oldest, maybe we should say that only the eldest can do the Yibum. Pashut, and an ordinary brother, Lo Liyabim, is not allowed to do Yibum. So no, we're not going to say that, because Imkain Eishes Achiv Shlo Haya Ba'olamo Demiat Rachmana Lamali. If the only brother who is allowed to perform Yibum is the one who was born first, well then why does the Torah bother to tell me that a non-contemporary brother is not allowed to perform Yibum? Of course a non-contemporary brother is not allowed to perform Yibum. He's not the oldest. So as a result, so Rav Acha, so 1 second, Rav Acha said back, 1 second, maybe the point of the non-contemporary brother is telling us that to exclude such a brother if that brother is the Bachor from his mother. And so as a result, maybe that was a non-contemporary brother of the deceased from the same father. So as a result, maybe that person is the one who's being excluded. No, because and so that as a result, although he's a sibling from the father, he's not a sibling from the mother. And now we'll let him, he's a Bachor for his mother. And so as a result, we'll allow him, even though he's not contemporary, to be the first one. So no, Hahulo Matzis Amrit. No, that can't possibly be, because the Yibum Benachla Tala Rahmana, the whole concept of Yibum has connected to the laws of inheritance. And so as a result, the inheritance is only from the father, not from the mother. And so as a result, we would never have thought, you would never think to say that the firstborn could include the firstborn from the mother. So as a result, we've rejected possibility number one of how we can interpret this verse and say Yibum Bachor means Bachor literally. So now we have the second. We're going to do this 4 more times. The ema ki ika Bachor tiskayim mitzvos Yibum ki leika Bachor lo tiskayim mitzvos Yibum. Maybe it's not that the oldest brother has to do it, but maybe there just has to be an oldest brother. And if there's no oldest brother, if there's no Bachor for the family, well, then there won't be any obligation to do Yibum. So Amrakra umeis echad mihem. Well, 1 second, the Torah says that one of them dies. Milo askinim demeis Bachor. can't we be dealing with a situation where even it's the oldest one who dies? And thus the pasuk is telling us that the younger one should perform yibum. Well, that could be, but the ema demes katan. No, maybe the Torah is telling us about where the younger brother dies. And as a result, that's why it's saying that the Bechor needs to perform Yibum. But again, if we're saying that only when the eldest brother exists do we have this concept, well, then why do we need to say anything about a non-contemporary brother, right? If the commandment only applies when the younger brother dies, there's no point in excluding a non-contemporary brother, because the non-contemporary brother is not going to, the Bechor who remains alive is obviously going to be his younger brother's contemporary. There's no need to tell us about a non-contemporary brother. So we see that the mitzvah applies even when there's no living Bechor. And so because that's the only way that we could end up being concerned about a non-contemporary brother. And since the term Bechor cannot be understood literally, so again, it needs to be the eldest brother, not the Bechor literally. All right, so let's try again to see whether we can make Bechor understood literally. Ve'ema kileka Bechor kadam zacha. Maybe the rule is that when there's no Bechor, well, then a katan can go ahead and do yibum. The I'ika Bechor katan lo zacha. Then if the younger brother goes and jumps the line, he has not actually done the mitzvah of yibum, and so as a result, it won't count as yibum. So Amar Kra ki yeshu achim yachdav, huksha yeshivas achem lezeh lezeh. So the Torah says when the brothers dwell together, that implies that all the brothers have some level of equal setting, and so as a result, that it must be that if a younger brother jumps the line, it is okay, and that brother Zibum is a valid Yibum. So now that we've resolved that, we still don't have we still are trying to understand, maybe Bechor could mean a Bechor literally. So ve'ema ki'ika Bechor lahadar agadol. Maybe when there's a living Bechor, so then we have to go to the oldest one and the Bechor. Kileka Bechor ein chozron eitzel gadol. But when there's no oldest brother, well, then we don't have to go back to the oldest brother. So Alma Tani Abaye Kashisha, 1 second, but Abaye the elder taught the following brisa: mitzvah begadol yabim lo ratza holchem etzel achiv hakatan. So the question is, if the oldest brother does not want to do yibum, do we go to all the other brothers or just to the next brother in line? So we say, Rashi explains this as saying that we go to the next younger brother. Lo ratza chozrin etzel gadol. If the younger brothers don't want to, we go back to the oldest brother and we actually force him to do the mitzvah. Either he's going to do yibum or he's going to do chalitza. So all of them, so it all ends up being back on the shoulders of the eldest. And so as a result, again, trying to say that it means that the oldest only has the first chance, but not any later chance, is not correct, because we have a brisa that tells us otherwise. So Bechor, that he's like the eldest brother is like the Bechor. Ma Bechor so garmolo, just as Bechor, a Bechor, his status as the eldest causes him to have the precedence. So too, whoever is the oldest brother, again, has the oldest, gives him precedence. So we go in order, and then we go back to the eldest. So the bottom line is that it's not a free for all once the eldest says no. So therefore, that we can't be we cannot be interpreting Bechor literally. We're interpreting Bechor figuratively as eldest, and not specifically the firstborn. Well, 1 second, we're going to try one more time. The ema ki miyabim Bechor lishkol nachala, ki miyabim pashut lo lishkol nachala. Maybe when we say that there's a Bechor, what the word Bechor is teaching us is that only if the oldest brother, only if the firstborn is the one who performs Yibum, does the firstborn get the inheritance of the deceased brother. But if any other brother performs yibum, then he would not get the inheritance of the deceased brother. So no, that is not. That is also not the truth, because Amar Akra Yakum al Shem Achiv. What did we say was the language that told us about inheritance? It's Yakum al Shem Achiv. He succeeds to the name of his brother. So what is the Hare Kam? Any other brother has also succeeded. So as a result, any other brother should also get the inheritance. So we cannot say that the inheritance is tied just to being the firstborn. The Ella Bechor Dikare Rachmana. So as a result, it must be that when the Torah calls somebody the firstborn, Lamai Hilchasa, what is it? So what is it about? Right? So we have to teach something. We have to learn something from the fact that the word is Bechor. So Ligriyusa. No, it's to tell us that the Yavam's rights aren't complete, are diminished. Griyusa meaning diminished. So Ma Bechor, just as a Bechor, Eno Noto Biroi Kivimuchsach, just as a firstborn. So let's just go over some laws of a firstborn. The firstborn gets a double portion. So if there are, let's say, to a simple case, 5 sons, so you divide the inheritance into 6 pieces, because there are 5 sons, you get an extra piece. 2 go to the eldest, so he gets 1/3, 2/6, and everybody else gets 1/6. So again, he gets double what everybody else does. However, that only applies to possessions that the father has at the moment that they're being divided. If in fact there are assets, maybe somebody owes the father money that is not yet in the father's hands at the time of the father dies, so then that does not get divided in this same manner. The eldest, the Bechor, does not get the double portion in the things that have yet to reach the father's hands. And so too, Afhai, so too in the connection with the Yavam, Eino Noto Biroi Kivimuchsach. He does not get from the prospective assets just as he gets from the access that are actually held by the father. And so as a result, that's what the Bechor word teaches us. But more generally, the concept is that the oldest brother is the one who does the yibum, and it goes down in precedence if he doesn't want to do it. So we go from eldest to the next eldest to the next eldest, and so on. And the concept of Bechor is important only in connection with the fact that when the brother who marries the widow inherits all the possessions of the deceased brother, he only inherits the possessions of the deceased brother specifically if those were possessions that that were already in his hand. But the things that were not in his hand, then that would not be go to the deceased brother. That would not go to the brother who evil. Okay, so that is that Gemara, and now we continue on with an interesting Mishnah that deals with rumors in relationships. So Hanitan al Hashifta, if somebody is subject to rumors that they slept with a shifcha, with a maidservant, so nishtachra, that, and now that woman is let free, so she now became a full Jewish woman. Or the rumor is that the person slept with somebody who's not Jewish, v'nisgaira, and now she converted. Harezeh lo yichnos. You're not allowed to marry her. Okay, that guy is not allowed to marry her. V'im kanas, but if he did marry her, ein motziin miyado. We do not require him to divorce her. However, hanitan al eshes ish, if there's a rumor that he slept with somebody who is actually married, and now the court has the husband divorce her, even though now the man who was subject to the rumor goes ahead and marries the suspected adulterer, Yotzi. We say that he has to divorce her. We're not going to allow the man who effectively broke up the marriage to marry the divorcee. So Hagioris Miyahavya. 1 second. This all implies that even though the woman seems to have converted for the marriage purposes, that she is considered a legitimate convert. This is an important Gemara in today's halachot of conversion. Uraminu, but it seems that there's a contradiction because we have the following brisa. Echad isha nisgayer l'shum isha. If a man converted to Judaism for a woman, the echad isha nisgayer l'shum ish, or a woman converts to Judaism for a man, v'chein misha nisgayer l'shum shulchan malachim, or if you convert in order to sit at the king's table l'shum avdei Shlomo, or because you wanted to be part of the servants of Shlomo. Einon Geirin. These are all not legitimate converts. You need to convert for the right reasons. Divri Rabbi Nechemia. That's what Rabbi Nechemia says. Shahaya Rabbi Nechemia Omer. Echad Girei Arios. Whether you convert because you are scared. Echad Girei Arios means lions, meaning that there are no atheists in the foxhole, so to speak. So this is the Gemara's version of that. That if you are in the foxhole and now you convert in order to try and save yourself, that's not a valid conversion. If you're inspired by a dream, you're not allowed to convert. That doesn't count as a conversion. Or you convert in the times of Mordechai and Esther when the Jewish people are in super duper power positions. None of those people are considered converts. You have to convert in a time like now when there's no ulterior motive for conversion. So bisman hazeh. What do you mean? What does it mean in the present time? Ela ema kibisman hazeh. It's like this time, i.e., again, meaning a time when the Jewish people are not in power. So ha itmar Allah. 1 second. It was said in connection with this. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta b'shmei derav. So again, what's the question? The question is we just had this brisa that says that a conversion for a man is not allowed. So how could we allow, is not a valid conversion? So how can we say that the conversion in our Mishnah is a valid conversion? So because after all, the man is allowed to stay married to her. And if it wasn't a valid conversion, it isn't a valid marriage. So Allah, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta Mishmei Derav halacha k'divrei ha'omer kulam gerim heim. No, the halacha is not like the brisa that we just quoted, and all of these are considered, in fact, converts. Well, well, then in that case, why not let the man suspected of having a relationship with this woman actually go ahead and marry her? V'shum de Ravasi. It's because of Ravasi's teaching. To Amar Ravasi, what did Ravasi teach? He taught from the following pasuk in Mishlei, Haser mimecha ikashut peh ulazus fasayim, that you should remove yourself from curving of mouth and bending of lips. Meaning, his read is not that this is saying that you should avoid yourself speaking ill, but you should avoid doing things that will cause others to speak poorly about you and disparage you. So as a result, that's why we're not going to allow a man to marry the woman for whom it appears that she converted, because if they had a relationship, because we're worried that will get people talking, and we're not supposed to, even though, of course, people are not supposed to talk. People shouldn't be talking Lashon Hara, but at the same time, we shouldn't do things that will cause people to talk Lashon Hara either. So, Tana Rabbanan, so now we learned in a brisa, Ein mekablim gerim limot HaMashiach. We're not going to accept converts when Mashiach comes. Kayotzibo, and similarly, lo kiblu gerim, lo b'mei David, lo b'mei Shlomo. We're not going to. We didn't accept converts at the times of David HaMelech and the times of Shlomo HaMelech. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says, "Mikra." What's the pasuk that this is true? Hein gor yagur efes me'osi mi garm itcha alayach hipol. That who wishes to convert, let him convert without me. Without me, meaning without God, i.e., when Israel doesn't have God in its corner. So one who converts with you being the Jewish people, that person will rest with you. So the idea is that is how we're going to survive. So the idea is that is going to be the situation. So abal idach low, but the one who is converts either because it's a positive time in the world, or because it is either because it's a positive time in the in among the Jewish people, or the as in when Mashiach is here, or because it's the time of King David or King Shlomo. In all those situations, then we will not accept that conversion. So now Hanitan al Eshes Ish, though we say that the person is subject to a rumor. So what's the story? So Amarav Uva Edim. Actually, we're talking about where there were witnesses who testified that actual adultery took place. But if there was only a rumor, then we will not force the second husband to divorce the divorcee. So again, we'll let's use names. So Shlomo and Shira are married, and now Reuven has a relationship with Shira, and the question is, and now Shlomo and Shira get divorced. Now, can Reuven marry Shira? So in our Mishnah, we said that he cannot. And so Rav is saying that the situation where he's not allowed to marry, and not only is he not allowed to marry, but we're going to actually force him to divorce her. It's not where it's just a rumor, but it's where there were witnesses that there was actual adultery that took place. So Amar of Sheshes, 1 second, is that really true? Amina Kinayim Shvishachib Rav Amar Lahai Shmaita. Rav must have been sleeping when he said this, because Tanya, we have a brisa that seems to say exactly the opposite. Hanitan al Ishes Ish, if there's a rumor that a man had relations with a married woman, Votziu al Yado, and as a result, the husband divorces her, and now she married a third person, and she became divorced from him as well. Imkanas, and now the suspected adulterer marries her. Lo Yotzi, we're not going to require divorce. Hechidami, what's this case? If you say that there was actually witnesses, my habit, who cares whether somebody came and interrupted the rumor? There was an actual adultery. Elalav deleke edim. So it must be that there were no edim in this particular case, in this brisa. The time of the asa acher va'afseke lekala, and the reason that he's allowed to stay married to her is because somebody else interrupted it. Halav haki mafkinan. But if not so, then we would cause them to get divorced, just as we have in our Mishnah, right? So the case of our Mishnah and this case must both be dealing with only a rumor. So Rav would respond back, no. Amar lach Rav. Rav would say back to you, no. Huadin. No, the point is that you are right that this brisa is talking about a rumor, but what it's telling us is that even in a case of a rumor, if there were actually witnesses, that even when somebody does not come and stop the rumor, if there are witnesses, we're going to require the divorce. If there's no witnesses, we're not going to require divorce. And so as a result, our Mishnah is talking about where there are witnesses. And with respect to this brisa, we're talking about where there are no witnesses. And this is what the brisa is saying. Even though now a third party came and married the divorcee in the middle, in this, we still should not, the person about whom the rumor is having, right? Reuven, who has the rumor that he slept with Shira, should still not marry Shira ideally. L'chatchila, he should not. But because we're just dealing with a rumor and not actual witnesses, If he did marry her, we're not going to force them to divorce. So we are going to continue this discussion, this debate between Rav and Rav Sheshes. Again, Rav says, if there's just rumors, you're not allowed to marry. If there's just rumors of Ruvain and Shira having an adulterous relationship, well, then Ruvain shouldn't marry Shira lechatchila, but b'di'evet, if he does marry, we will not force them to get divorced. But according to Rav, if we have witnesses that they actually engaged in an adulterous relationship, well, then we will force them to get divorced. On the other hand, Rav Sheshes says, no, the answer is that if there's even just a rumor that they had such a relationship, we will force them to get divorced. And so we will continue this debate and the questioning of back and forth of these opinions, God willing, tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi, as always.
Have a wonderful day.
Same to you. Same to you.